Duren Nusantara, bangkit dan maju bersama ASEAN. Selamat petang Kuala Lumpur, selamat petang Malaysia, selamat petang Nusantara bersama dengan saya pada petang hari ini melalui Radio Duren Nusantara Bangkit dan Maju bersama ASEAN. Pada petang hari ini saya, Nurbaya Hassan, akan menemani anda melalui segmen Ruang Tamu Kita, dan untuk segmen Ruang Tamu Kita pada petang hari ini kami akan memutarkan rakaman terhadap sebuah program bicara warisan Siri Kuala Lumpur ataupun Heritage Talk KL Series yang telah dianjurkan oleh Badan Warisan Malaysia. Tajuk untuk bicara warisan pada kali ini adalah Betulkah Hantuah Wujud? Bicara warisan berkenaan telah disampaikan oleh Profesor Emeritus Dr. Ahmad Adam. Sedikit biografi mengenai Profesor Emeritus Dr. Ahmad Adam. Beliau ialah mantan Profesor Sejarah di Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia dan Universiti Malaysia Sabah. Beliau pernah berkhidmat sebagai Fellow Pelawat, Sarjana Tamu dan Fellow Penyelidik di beberapa buah universiti di seberang laut dan di Malaysia, termasuklah Amerika Syarikat, Denmark, Jepun, Netherlands, Singapura dan United Kingdom. Dan sementara di tanah air pula, termasuklah Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia dan Universiti Malaya. Profesor Emeritus Dr. Ahmad Adam juga pernah menjadi sarjana Fulbright, anggota projek Jalan Sutera Maritim UNESCO dan juga sebagai fellow pelawat di Oxford Centre for Islamic Studies, University of Oxford. Jadi, kita dengarkan putaran rakaman terhadap bicara warisan ini yang bertajuk Betulkah Hantuah Wujud? Ruang tamu kita.
Nama Laksmana Malaka, the name of the Malaka Laksmana, can never be known forever. Sampai bila-bila pun nama itu tidak boleh diketahui. Why? Mengapa? Wujudnya pantang larang menyebut nama pembesar dalam budaya lama Melayu, kecuali nama dilarang. You see, I'm surprised many contemporary Malaysian scholars are not aware of this. Before the period 1800 AD, it is forbidden to mention or to write the name of a chief. It cannot be mentioned orally, or his name cannot be written in any document. Because of the existence of the taboo, the linguistic taboo, the name taboo, and this name taboo in Southeast Asia is connected with the belief in animism, in the belief among Malays is belief that the semangat here doesn't mean the semangat kemerdekaan, that's still wrong. Semangat here means the soul in every object on earth, even in the form of fluid. There is semangat in the water, there is semangat in the sea, there is semangat on your head. God is not only because that only has. He has had. And this belief in semangat is not only among Malays. It's also based among other South Asians, Thailand, Chinese, Burmese, Champa people, the Vietnamese people. They believe in the spirit of the soul. But especially in the Malay ethnic groups of South Asia, in Nusantara, they believe that semangat lives on every object, as I said, even the fluid. So, especially on parts of your body, from head to toe, your nails, the hair, the nails, the photo of a person, and especially the name. Because If anyone were to charm a woman, for example, he could do it by dating locks of the lady's hair, or fingernails, or photograph of the person. And that is why it is forbidden to just neglect. When you cut your nails, you can't just simply throw. Or you cut your hair, you can't just simply throw. Or when the baby is born, there's a ceremony called cropping of the hair, or cutting the hair. And that the purpose is to get rid of the bad semangat, the bad spirit from the head, from the person. In the 19th century, when a lady wanted to get married, her teeth would be painted black. Why? In order to reject or to disallow the bad spirit from entering the soul or body again. And because of that, a person in the 19th century, for example, will not reveal his name, because his enemy can do evil things to him, can cause harm to him by way of magic. And among Malays, until the 50s, when you address a person, you cannot mention his name. You mention his eldest child's name. And this is prevalent in Southeast Asia, among Japanese, among Bugis, among Sumatrans, Minangkabau, and Malays in Malaysia. Sabahan. I just came back from Indonesia 3 weeks ago, and when I wanted to talk to the person in charge of the toilet who was charging fees, he told me, don't address me by my name. Call me by my son's name. So this is valid. The name is very sacred to the individual. Ini yang orang tidak paham. Kalau mau mengkaji sejarah pun, budaya itu mesti dimengerti. Must be understood. The Alfurs of Poso in Sulawesi will never mention their names, their personal names. If a person wanted to know the other person's name, the Alfurs name, he cannot ask me. He should ask another person. And he can do that by asking the name of his son, by asking his son how to address his father. And the address would be like Bapa si Ani, Ani's father, or Fatima's father. And this still is prevalent in Southeast Asia, in Nusantara, belief. You have no kids, then you address your nephew or your niece. Tujuan tidak menyatakan nama pribadi. The reason why personal name is not mentioned. The Tolongpu people in Sulawesi also believe that the name of a person cannot be written down for fear that his semangat, his spirit of the soul will be kidnapped or taken away. But they will allow you to use their second name or their nickname. And among the Javanese, until today, his birth name would be different from his adult name. Especially if he goes to Mecca, if he becomes a Haji, the name is different. And among Malay Rajas, before they become Rajas or Sultans, they have their personal names. But once they assume the title of Sultan or Raja, they adopt differently. The only exception, if their name, for example, is Muhammad, it's the name of the Prophet, or Ahmad, or Mahmud. You see, Ahmad, Muhammad, Mahmud. These three names are generic names. They all belong to the name of the Prophet. Their name is the praised one. Mahmud means the praised one. Muhammad is the praised one. Ahmad is the praised one. Then in that case, they don't change to another name. They just put Shah, Sultan Mahmud Shah. But even Sultan Mahmud Shah of Malacca, before he became Sultan, his name was Mahmud. And Alauddin Rayyan Shah, before he became Sultan of Malacca, he was called Raja Hussein. And Sultan Mansur Shah was Raja Abdullah before he became Sultan. And if you observe among Malay Rajas today, even their names undergo slight changes. Take for example Raja Nazrin. He was just Nazrin. But now he's blah 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 blah. You know? Of course, Arabic words. So and this actually is not just practiced by Malays. The pharaohs did the same thing. You will not know the name of the pharaoh. The Burmese king, the Thai kings, Rama the first, Rama the second. So it's a universal phenomenon. And based on my reading, even in Korea they practice this name taboo. And it's speculated that this could have come from the Chinese. I don't know, I haven't done research on that. It is important to understand this, so I am giving a lengthy explanation. Dalam masyarakat Melayu tradisional Malay society, nama pembesar tidak pernah disebut selepas dia memegang jawatan, after he was the post, up to the 19th century. For example, Datuk Laning, you don't mention his name, Datuk Rosai. That is only we now scholars mention his name, Datuk Rosai. But during his time was Datuk Laning. Datuk Panglima Kinta, Tua. Tua is a nickname. His name was Yusuf. So they call him Datuk Panglima Kinta Tua. Datuk Maharaja Lela, you don't know his name. Datuk Menteri Larut. That was up to the 19th century. Nama-nama dalam sejarah Melayu pun menjadi bukti, and in the Malay annals, all the names of the chiefs actually are just titles or nicknames. For example, Seri Bijadi Raja. He was a great hero, comparable to the Laksamana. Sri Amarta, Bendahara Paduka Raja, Megak Sri Rama, Sang Setia. These are not names, they are titles or nicknames. And I can vouch because I have studied the Malay annals. It's already published, but they're going to launch it sometime next month. Malay annals, the Russian version. And for the author of the Malay annals, pengarang sejarah Malay pun tidak akan menyebut nama pembesar dan nama Raja Siam. The names of the kings of Siam or Champa will not be mentioned. Only their titles or nicknames are mentioned. For example, Bo Bandina, that's for Thailand, for Siam. Oya Decho, chief from Siam. Brachau from Siam. Bo Gama from Cambodia. Bo Kelong from Champa, Cambodia. Semuanya nama gelar, they're all nicknames or titles. Pembesar Jawa pun memakai nama gelar saja. Patih Gajah Mada. Patih Gajah Mada is never it's a title. He was the Prime Minister. Pangeran Diponegoro, that's not his name. Ratu Hang Daha, also not his name. Therefore, how come people are saying that the name of the Emperor of Malacca was Angkor? Who the devil told them? that they do not analyze the spelling of the waw ha. There is nowhere in the sejarah Melayu or in the Hikayat Tua where the spelling is TWAH, ta waw alif ha, with a vowel, you know. Waw is a vowel, alif is a vowel. Tuah. No. The spelling in the sejarah Melayu and the Hikayat Tua is always ta waw ha. By modern day reading, it should be taught. In olden day, in ancient time, it was tuha. It's not tuah, it's tuha. Or toh. Now don't forget, many people, as I said just now, many people forget the influence of old Javanese or Kawi language or Middle Javanese on Malay. In the Hikayat Tua, I'm working on it now. I'm editing the Hikayat Tua. Almost on every folio of the manuscript, you'll find Javanese, old Javanese words. Old Javanese words mean there are Sanskrit influence. The Malays never learned Sanskrit directly. They got the Sanskrit language through Old Javanese. Because it was Old Javanese that absorbed Sanskrit words first, and then adjusted it with local pronunciation and as I said, the word tuah is never found in the sejarah Melayu or Hikayat Tua. But what is found is only tuha, tawawha, tawawha, TWH. Tawawha is also an old Malay word, Melayu kuno. It means old. One meaning is old. Another meaning is leader. That's why you get the word ketua. Ketua is katuha. Orang tua-tua is orang tuha-tuha. The elders are leaders in the society. Orang tuha-tuha. So TWH cannot be pronounced or read as tuah. Instead, it should be read as tuha or toh. As I said, tuha is the old Javanese word and also old Malay word, whereas toh is an old Javanese word or Kawi word. Tuha means tua, old. Ketua, chief. Pemimpin, leader. Pengawas, supervisor, penyelia, penyelia kelompok. Pandai, a tukang, a craftsman, atau ahli, a person who is an expert of something. He has an expertise of something. In English, the head or overseer of a group is tuha. Guild, overseer of a guild, or etc., or veteran, or experienced, or skilled person, that's also tuha. The leader in command is tuha. A craftsman is tuha. And another sebutan pronunciation of TWH is toh. Toh means a stake in game when you gamble. That's toh. A wager, a competition, combat. In Malay is taruhan. Taruhan utama dalam pertempuran, war or sandaran. Main stake in combat is toh. This is old Javanese. The person on whom one relies as the main or sole support is toh. So this Hang Toh, that nickname reflects that this role is the stake, main stake for the Malacca Sultanate. Or he is the person on whom the Sultan relies as the main or sole support. That's the Toh. TWH atau OH tidak boleh dibaca Tuah. Why can't it be pronounced Tuah? My own research that I made shows that Tuah, which means fortune, and I said, I told Saida, her name Saida means Tuah or fortune in Arabic. The word Tuah never existed in the 15th and 16th century, or even up to the second half of 17th century. Now, how dare you say that? How can I say? I have done research. I have checked many manuscripts. The first time it was used was in the Hikayat Aceh, which was written around the middle or second half of the 17th century. Even then, the word Tuah there is used together with Bahagia. Tuah Bahagia. Tuah Bahagia means fortune. The word Bahagia means fortune, fate, nasib baik. And all the Malay works, the classical Malay works before the 17th century, for example, the Hikayat Sederama, the Sejarah Melayu, and even the Hikayat Hang Tuah, written in the 17th century, never use Tawa Alibha. If they want to use Tuah, meaning nasib baik, meaning fortune or fate, the word is Bahagia from Sanskrit. Bahagia is Sanskrit. All Javanese adopted this word, so it became Bahagia or Bahagia. Today, we call it Bahagia. But Bahagia today means happiness or happy. But actually, the original meaning of Bahagia is fortune, good luck, or even bad luck. And in the old Malay manuscripts, Tuah was never used. Instead, if they want to use instead of Bahagia, they will use untung. Sudah untungnya. It is his fate. Up to the 60s, this word bagi was used in Malacca. I remember my late mother used to say, if somebody experiences bad luck, she would say, sudah baginya. Bagi is a corruption of bagi, or Javanese bagi. So Tuah never existed. The word was coined much later, late 17th century. Tuha and Toh as nickname. Nama gelar Laksmana as nickname for Laksmana. Dalam ungkapan nama gelar Hang Tuha atau Hang Toh, now I'm saying Hang Tuah, not Hang Tuah, since Tuah didn't exist. Kata Tuha dan Toh adalah nicknames bagi Laksmana. Hang, by the way, is an old Malay word, Melayu kuno. Melayu kuno is just like old Javanese, old Malay, originated in the Melayu kingdom of Sumatra, Sriwijaya, Bitron. Juga berarti orang yang ahli. It happens that Hang also means the expert or the craftsman or a skilled person. Hang. So when you say Hang Tuha, there's double emphasis. Skilled person is also the skilled leader. Laksmana Hang Tuha means Laksmana si ketua yang cekap. So in English, Laksmana, the competent leader. That's the meaning of that. So that's not a name. It's a nickname. Now, if I say Laksmana Hang Toh, that means Laksmana, the main stick in combat. The man the Raja depended on, is also Hang Toh. There are so many nicknames in the Sejarah Melayu, in the annals. For example, Pedara Tepok. Tepok means physical lameness. So bendahara Tepok means the bendahara with physical lameness. He was lame. Raden Dikalang atau Raden Digalang in the sejarah Melayu means the prince was thwarted. It's not his name. Because no real names were ever used. Now many people forget that. There's so many people who have done studies on the cerita Panji, the Panji tales. Rasanya analyze the Panji. They will make comparison with Malay classical works. Actually, the author is not known. People claim it's Tun Sri Lanang. I say no. Tun Sri Lanang was a copyist. Even that was not his name. There's also a nickname. Lanang in the old Japanese means man. So, the author of the Sulalatu Salati in the Malay Annals was very much influenced by stories from the Panji Hikayat or Panji tales. And you can read them. These works have been published by the Bahasa. Hikayat Panji Semirang, Hikayat Cekelwaning Pati, Hikayat Naya Kusuma, and several others which I kept in the British Library in London. But unfortunately, many of these people who edited these works do not know old Javanese. So some words were misconstrued and wrong interpretation given. Just like many words in Sejarah Melayu. Those who have had Malay education will know that the so-called ancient ruler of the Malays, according to European or Western scholars, followed by Malay scholars, was Samsu Purba. You heard of Samsu Purba? It is not. I'm saying in my latest book, it's not Samsu Purba. It's Samsu Prabha. Suprabha means the light. Glimmering light. Glittering light. Suprabha was also the name, the other name for the Buddha. So when the Sejarah Melayu, the author of Sejarah Melayu mentioned Samsu Prabha, he was actually trying to imply the Malays accepted Buddhism or adopted Buddhism. The Malays were Buddhists in Sumatra. Buddhism came into Sumatra. The pengarang Sejarah Melayu, the author of the Sejarah Melayu, was also influenced by the Hikayat Pandawa V, which is the story of 5 warriors in Japanese mythology. If you read the Hikayat Hang Tuah or the Sejarah Melayu, you will find names like Raden Galuh Chandra Kirana. Chandra means moon. Kirana means beautiful. Raden Galuh Chandra Kirana. Patih Arya Gajah Mada. Megat Kuda. Naya Kusuma. Raden Purna Lango. Raden Tanjung Pura. All these names were taken from the cerita Panji. So I'm not saying that the author was stupid. No, he was a brilliant man. You know, he took these names and then created a myth saying that the Sultan Melaka visited Java. Never. It never happened in history. Also the names, if you read the Hikayat, you find the name Raden Wiranan Praja, Raja Melayu from Java. Itu Melaka is for Raja Melayu. Rangga and Kebo, and the concept of the 5 Kedayan, the 5 members of the retinue of the Raja, the 5 Nubala warriors. So these 5 warriors already existed in Javanese tale of cerita Panji. Sebab pengarang Sejarah Melayu they take this one and then created Hang Tuah, Hang Jebat, Hang Kasturi, Hang Lekir, Hang Kewa. Then people say Hang Lekiu. No such thing. It was misread. LK wow, LK Y W. It's not Lekiu, but Bukewa. Because all Jawi 15th century Jawi did not use vowels. So it's Lukewa. What's the meaning of Lukewa? Lukewa means soil. It's not liquid. And many people assume that story in chapter 11 and 12 of the Malay Annals, which was purportedly written by Tun Sri Lanka, and chapters 9 and 10 of the Raffles manuscript number 18, which has been twice published by the Indonesian branch of the Royal Asian Society, as referred, believe that, as I said, they believe that there was a Malacca delegation to Majapahit. I think this is also myth. Because a myth is important in literature in order to explain something. So the author of the Malay Annals wanted to show how great Malacca was. We survey the Raja of Java, the Batara Majapahit. So how else would he do? Saying that, well, the Sultan Mansur wanted his daughter, so he went. He managed to marry the daughter of the Batara Majapahit. The time Jawa was a great power. Just like the story of the Raja Melaka married Hang Lipo, the Chinese princess. This is also myth. It's not true. Because the pengarang of Sejarah Melayu, the author of the Malay Annals, wanted to demonstrate how glorious was the Malacca ruler, how great was Malacca. So that the Emperor of China sent a princess to be married to him. Now in the Sejarah Melayu also, it is stated that because the Emperor of China made a mistake in his correspondence to the Sultan of Malacca by saying that he was paying homage, menyembah kepada Sultan Malacca. So because he wrote that, he became tulah. It was a curse that he fell on him, on the emperor, and he suffered from skin disease. Something like that. To cure that, the advisor to the emperor suggested he should drink the water used to wash the feet of the Raja of Malacca. Can you imagine? The purpose is a myth, but the purpose is to show how great Malacca was. So don't believe in myth. It's not reality. It has a psychological purpose. And of course, when the Emperor of China drank the water that washed the feet of Sultan Mansur, and also drank it, mind you, he was pure. But in history, based on reality, it was the other way around. It was the Malacca Sultan that visited China 5 times in order to pay homage, to seek the cooperation and protection of China against Thai incursion, Chinese incursion from Malacca. So what does it say? You can't say the Sejarah Melayu is a historical source. Some parts yes, but not all. And it is in this chapter, on the occasion of the visit of the Sultan of Malacca to Majapahit, that the name Hang Tok and Hang Tuha was introduced. It's not a name actually. As I said, it's a nickname. It's a gelaran. Lakshmana, the great leader. That's what it means. Like I said just now, the visit to Majapahit is fiction. The visit could not have happened because during the rule of Mansur Shah, Majapahit was undergoing crisis after crisis. There were rebellions faced by the ruler of Majapahit. In civil wars occurred, 1451, 1453 to 56. There was no ruler of Majapahit. 1466 to 1468, 1468, 1474, and 1478. Mansur died in 1477. So even by using common sense, people have this. What more when you consider Gajah Mada, Patih Gajah Mada died in the year 1364. Melaka was not founded yet. So how could the Raja Melaka visit Majapahit and ridicule, always ridicule Patih Gajah Mada? Patih Gajah Mada died long before Melaka was opened by Parmeswara. And Mansur Shah died in 1477. And also, if you use logic, Melaka was already a Muslim state, Muslim kingdom. How could the Raja want to marry a princess who was Hindu or Buddhist from Majapahit? So this is all ridiculous. It's just myth. And taken from the Cerita Panji. Again, the event is an adaptation from the Panji Tales. The next important part of the so-called Hang Tuah is the duel between Hang Tuah and Hang Kasturi or Hang Jebat, depending on the version of the ads. I believe the event never took place, but there's a purpose in the myth, because by illustrating the duel between Hang Tuah's colleague, Hang Kasturi in the Sejarah Melayu, and then Hang Tuah killed Hang Kasturi, and the Sultan, if you consider a traitor to the Raja, when you die, your body will be thrown at sea, and your house will be overturned. Then your wife and children will be killed. So that's how serious Durhaka or Drohaka is in Malay polity. So for the Malays, to be Durhaka is something accursed. You must never be a traitor to the ruler or to those in power. And this is not just created by the Melaka kingdom, but actually in the 7th century in Sumatra, there are records of those who went against the chiefs or rajas of the Malayu kingdom would be killed and cursed. The sumpah, people fear the sumpah, the curse of the Raja. So, like the visit to Majapahit, this duel also didn't take place. Again, because of the influence of the Panji Tales and the myth in the stories, the name of Jebat, Kasturi, Lekir, and Lukewa, all Javanese words, all old Javanese words, were created by the author of the Malay Annals to create a fiction. And so this part of the Sejarah Melayu, this chapter, the adventure of Hang Tuah and his friends, are actually the first Malay novel, first Malay fiction. That's in the 16th century. The name Jebat, what is the meaning of Jebat? Jebat means Kasturi. What is the name Kasturi? Kasturi means Jebat. It means something sweet smelling. Perfume, perfumery is Jebat. Maybe, I might be wrong. This is speculation. The purpose of introducing the name in the duel of Hang Kasturi and Hang Tuah to show that however sweet smelling you are, however good the perfume is, when you Durhaka, when the rebel becomes traitor, becomes pungent, very bad. That smell, busuk, something wangi, like Shakespeare said, all the perfumes of Arabia, No? So, Durhaka until today, people don't understand. It's very important and really quality. Look at what I said just now, means sword. Now, how come the pengarang sejarah Melayu, author of the sejarah Melayu, adopt this name? Among the five, one of them is Lukewa, the fifth one. Actually, this name already existed. I mean, the name with the same meaning. Already existed in Cerita Panji, and that was Kertala. So Lukewa is the translation of Kertala. Kertala in old Japanese means barang, or sharp weapon, or belati, pisau belati, a dagger. Now, Lukewa means sword, is what they say. I already mentioned that the marriages of Mansur Shah with Galuh Chandra Kirana and Hang Lipo are myth. The Sejarah Melayu, the author of the Sejarah Melayu was also very much influenced by the Mahabharata and the Ramayana of India, Hindu literature. The word Laksamana, people assume or people believe that Laksamana means admiral. That was not admiral, but you say admiral. Laksamana. But actually, Lakshmana, the Indian hero in the Sri Rama or in the Ramayana, is a symbol of loyalty to the king. It's just the opposite of Drohaka, the Sanskrit word Drohaka. And the word Lakshmana had already existed in Malay vocabulary since the time of Sultan Muhammad Shah, who ruled between 1423 or 1424 until 1444 or 45. He was just a Bantara, although his title was Lakshmana, his nickname was Lakshmana. He was a Bantara. Bantara is somebody who runs errand for the Raja. If the Raja says you're going to kill the person, the Bantara will go and kill him. Or if the Bantara is supposed to bring a message, the Bantara will also ask him to send a message to somebody. At first he was just a Bantara, the king's Bantara. And then he was given the responsibility as the Panglima Turus, the chief of staff of the armed forces, Panglima Turus. This is exactly the meaning of Lakshmana in Ramayana. His brother Rama assigned him the duties of Panglima Turus, chief of the army. And he was also very loyal to Rama. Rama, as most of you probably know, well, Rama is a manifestation of Vishnu, the Savior, the God Vishnu. So, the role of Lakshmana means, first, loyalty to the king. Never drohaka. Right or wrong, always loyal to the king. Just like Lakshmana was loyal to Rama in the Ramayana. Atas kehebatan orang yang berjawatan Lakshmana, maka pengarang sejarah Melayu telah merekayasa mitos Lakshmana Hang Tuah. So the Lakshmana, the real Lakshmana that existed in Indonesia had another reflection, another symbolic figure, Lakshmana Hang Tuah, to reflect this image of being loyal, the loyal warrior to the king, to the sultan, and Hang Tuah, the one the sultan would depend on, the stake of the Malacca Sultanate. So Hang Tuah and Hang Tuah were not their names, not the Lakshmana's names, but it's a reflection of the Lakshmana, the character of the Lakshmana. Because he was bold, he was somebody that the state, the Sultanate depended on, the person that the Raja trusted and depended on. This is to describe the characteristic of the warrior nicknamed Laksmana, called Laksmana. As I said, Laksmana the brave. The author of the Sejarah Melayu is indeed very conscious of the fact that he could not transgress the law of forbidding names. They mentioned lyric down. So the taboo, the linguistic taboo, was followed by the author of the annals. He avoided mentioning the name of the Laksmana. Instead, he mentioned the attributes of the Laksmana, the brave one, the stake of the Sultanate. And about the Kris. Some people believe that the Kris Tamingsari is now in Perak, in the Keraton of Perak. Can't stop. That's it. But I believe this myth was created by the author of the Sejarah Melayu to make the story interesting. He created the character of Tamingsari, and he had a Kris. How did he come to this? How did he come to this effort to create Tamingsari and the Kris? Well, he must have read the story of Raden Inukuripan in the Panji Tales, where it is mentioned that the Kris of Raden Inukuripan, the king of Kuripan, the prince of Kuripan, is called Kalamisani. Kalamisani. Kalamisani means kalajengking, poisonous scorpion. Kalajengking yang beracun, poisonous scorpion. That's the meaning in old Japanese. Kalamisani. It's an old Japanese term. According to the Panji Tales, whoever uses the Kris would be invulnerable. That's like Hantuha when he used Tamingsari. The meaning of Tamingsari, by the way, is sari terbaik untuk perisai, the best essence for a sheep. Best essence. That's Kalamisani, Tamingsari. Now, when the real Laksamana of Malacca died, he was such a great warrior. He was a Tuha. He was a Tok, Hang Tok, or Hang Tuha. When he died, his successor was somebody not effective, incompetent. So, you see, as I said, the author of this journal was a very wise guy. He was a shrewd fellow. So he created the name of the Laksmana who succeeded Hang Tuha, Khoja Hasan. You must think that is just an ordinary name. The word Khoja ordinarily would mean a merchant of Indian descent, or somebody who preaches religion, Khoja. But then this word Khoja doesn't render that meaning. Khoja here means somebody who is important, who lacks power. The Laksmana yang bergelar Khoja ini muncul dalam kisah the 27th chapter of the Sejarah Melayu, when he killed Tun Perpati Hitam. That's about Khoja Hasan, the Laksmana who succeeded Hang Tuha. Now, here I explain. Khoja came from the Persian word Khwaja, which refers to the community who were of Shiite faith, who believed in Shiism. They were followers of the Ismaili Shiite chief Sadr bin Shah, who lived 1368-1423 in India. Now, this Khoja still exists in India. They are followers of the Aga Khan. Khoja ialah nama gelar orang alim dalam komuniti yang juga disebut kaum Khoja. Usually, these Khojas who are religious people would be addressed as Sheikh, Tuan Sheikh. If they are called Sheikh, then they are Khojas. Usually. But in later period, there were Khojas who also embraced Sunnism, Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and they were known as Sheikh, like I said this time. The Khoja community usually would involve themselves in trade during the period of like South Asia, or they would become missionaries or religious teachers. Now, just now I was telling you about names of chiefs cannot be mentioned. So why must the author mention this name for Hasan? And it was supposed to be the name of or gelar of the Laksamana. But as I say, the pengarang sejarah Melayu, the author of the Malay Annals, in a very refined way, wanted to say that after the Laksamana, who was bold, who was a craftsman, who was a skilled soldier, died, there was no one to inherit the character of Tuha, effective leader, or top state of the Sultanate. Because the one who replaced him was a Khoja. Here, Khoja means yang orang yang sudah dikebiri syahwatnya. So it becomes important. That's another meaning of the Persian word. Like Chenko with the Yunan. So when the real Laksamana died, Laksamana the Tuha, Laksamana Hamto died, there was no more effective Laksamana. Because Khoja Hasan was buried at Gunung Pentar, and Pentar means weak voice when he spoke himself like a city person. This is my own interpretation. The word Hasan is used here to indicate that the author of Sejarah Melayu was not favorable to this Laksamana. He called him Khoja. And Hasan is a Shiite name. It's not a normal Malay name. It's a Shiite name. There's some prejudice amongst Sunnis towards Shiites. Even in India. The author of Sejarah Melayu was not in favor of this Laksamana because he was the one who was bribed by Raja Mudalia, who caused the Bendahara Sri Maharaja of Malacca to be killed by Sultan Mahmud. It was because of him, because he was bribed by Raja Mudalia, the Tamil trader in Malacca, Tamil great merchant in Malacca. And after the Laksamana Hamtuha died, there was no more, as I say, great Laksamana. After Khoja Hasan, Laksamana Khoja Hasan, another name cropped up. He was called Laksamana Ha-Nadim. Nadim actually in Arabic means companion. See, the author of the Sejarah Melayu was influenced or he made use of words from Persian, from Arabic, Old Japanese, from Old Sundanese, so many languages. He named that the third Laksamana of Malacca as Ha-Nadim. But Nadim again was not his name. Nadim means companion. This is exactly the meaning that is rendered by Lakshmana in Hinduism. The companion of Rama. The loyal companion of Rama. The purpose of the author of the Sejarah is to show that the post of Laksamana was continued until the Portuguese attack. Nadin is equivalent to Lakshmana in the Ramayana. Conclusion. It is illogical, tidak munasabah, that the Lakshmana Malaka had a name, Hang Tuah. Kesalahan membaca Edan Jawi. They misread the Jawi. Tawah is not Tuah, but Toh or Tuha. And as the second reason is the word Tuah did not exist before the 18th century. Perkataan Tuah, Ta, Waw, Alif, Ha lebih lumrah dipakai pada apa? Only after the 18th century, which means in the 19th century the word Tuah was widely used. In all texts of the sejarah Melayu before 18th century, there was no word spelled Tuah. What was written is Tuha or Toh, which is spelled Ta, Waw, Ha, T-W-H. The third reason why it's not possible for the Lakshmana to have a name, because of the taboo in giving names to a chief. It is not possible that Lakshmana had a name because of this taboo. The real hero of the Malacca Sultanate was not Tuha or Tuah, because that was not the name, but Lakshmana. It was Lakshmana. There is evidence, there is proof, because Lakshmana wrote letters in 1480 and 1481 to the Emperor of Ryukyu. So that's solid evidence. And there is another hero actually. The Malacca people should think of this, Sri Vijayadiraja or Sri Vijaya. He was the invader of Pahang. And this because Malacca in fact wanted to subjugate Pahang. And he was also the one who crowned the king of Pahang. The Sultan asked him to crown Sultan Muhammad Shah to become the Sultan of Pahang. When Raja Muhammad, when he played sepak raga with the son of Bendahara, Raja, he got angry when his dastar fell, his headgear fell. So what he did was, as usual, Malays run amok, so he put his fist and stabbed and killed the Bendahara's son. So the Sultan said, it's unfortunate that I have to exile you. You go to Pahang. So the Sultan didn't want to crown Tabah his son, and instead send Sri Vijayadiraja. So there are two heroes in Malacca. Lakshmana and Sri Vijayadiraja. Even Sri Vijayadiraja, we do not know his name. It's not possible to know his name or the Lakshmana's name. But you must understand, two heroes is quite great because you must also understand Malacca, the existence of Malacca was only from 1400 or at most 1319 to 1511. It's only about 111 or 120 years. Whereas the Portuguese ruled Malacca for almost 130 years. And then the Dutch longer than that. So actually the Malay Sultanate existed only for over 100 years. It's a short period. That's all.
Kalau kita menerima apa yang Prof sebut nama-nama pembesar Melayu pada waktu itu tidak disebut, tapi tidak dengan nama yang lain. Bagaimana dengan nama-nama yang lain, mungkin yang lain itu merah, itu kembali.
Good question.
Itu yang pertama. Kerana gelaran adalah pendana itu merah. Dan negara itu dan seterusnya. Itu yang pertama. Yang kedua, apa yang Prof telah sampaikan yang berbeda tadi adalah sesuatu yang kalau kita perhatikan menafikan kepercayaan yang telah dipegang selama bertahun-tahun. Ini adalah satu kejutan bagi banyak orang. Misalnya, sekiranya ada satu orang muncul dan mengatakan menyampaikan kepada umum bahawa Kuala Lumpur tidak dibentuk oleh Shah Alam misalnya. Itu pun satu debat panjang yang lain. Soalan saya ialah, apakah mustahil kita membetulkan antara mitos dan sejarah ini kepada naratif bangsa untuk keselamatan?
Yes. Terima kasih. Saya pun ingin menyelonggar sejarah kerana saya sayang bangsa Melayu. Saya tidak mahu bangsa Melayu ini tidak dihormati oleh orang lain. Kita mahu penghormatan, kita mesti bercakap benar. Sejarah kita mesti berasaskan kebenaran. Kalau saya cakap bohong, bangsa lain tak percaya saya. Itu saja. Honesty is the best policy. In history, honesty is crucial. Okey. Nah, tentang Tuan Perak, memang namanya sebelum dia jadi bendahara bagi kerajaan, namanya Tuan Perak. Bila dia jadi bendahara bagi kerajaan, dalam sejarah lain bendahara bagi kerajaan, bendahara bagi tidak ada kata bendahara Tuan Perak. Sama dengan saya kata tadi, Datuk Panglima Tita, Datuk bila dah jadi pangkat pun, yang dipanggil yang gelar Datuk Menteri, Menteri Laut misalnya. Orang tak sebut nak Ibrahim atau apa. Memang namanya kan Ibrahim, tapi itu bagi kita yang tahu ataupun third party menyebutnya. Tapi dia pakai itu. Orang sebut dia Datuk Menteri, Datuk Tani. Bukan seorang Datuk Tani. Dos naik dengan salah orang. Kemudian ada lagi apa tadi? Ada yang soalan yang saya jawab. Penting untuk memisahkan mitos dan sejarah ialah supaya anak cucu kita jangan dibohong. Sebab itu penting tu. Bila misalnya kan dalam surat khabar ada orang selamanya orang kata Tanjung Malim, di Tanjung Malim itulah buang orang. Datang satu orang Allah dia kata, oh dia pindah ke Palembang. Sebelum dia mati dia pergi ke Palembang. Ini kan pencelaran sejarah. Tak boleh, sejarah itu mesti diluruskan. Mesti cerita yang benar. Now, ini berarti you must do research. Problem is a lot of people talk. Retorik banyak, tak buat research. Especially in the universities. Misalnya ada satu profesor kata, tak payah sebut nama, dia kata kaedah filologi yang saya pakai, filologi artinya menganalisis istilah jauh maknanya kuat, maknanya apa, kesulitannya apa. Mereka bukan selalu betul. Dia lebih pandai. Ilmu mengatakan itu. Kalau you tak ada bukti, you don't have. It's so easy to prove that he didn't exist. Saya bisa menggunakan linguistic analysis. Baik, evidence ada perkataan itu wujud misalnya. Dan cari evidence review itu saya pakai. Dah lama dah tahu. Tapi orang yang boleh mengatakan kuat seolah-olah new discovery. Nothing new, 1968. Orang dah tahu. Sekarang 2015 masa dia keluar buku mengatakan hamba wujud. Tapi tak ada bukti. Jadi bila mengkaji sejarah, kita bezakan yang mana mitos. Mitos, there is a purpose in mythology. Mitos. Tujuannya adalah untuk menerangkan sesuatu. Misalnya, in the Malay Annals, Sultan Mansur Shah, dalam versi lain Sultan Mahmud Shah, dikatakan ini meminang putri Gunung Beda. Ini mitos. Dengan putri beranak tuntut, you want to marry me? Alright, sediakan hati nyamuk. Mana nak cari hati nyamuk? Akhir sekali darah Raja Ahmad, anak Sultan. So, tapi ada tujuan mitos. Tujuan untuk menunjukkan, saya kata pertuturan itu nasihat terakhir. Nak menyesatkan, janganlah terlampau. See, even though you are powerful in the country, you are powerful king, but you must have your limit. It's not possible to have everything. Dan mitos itu pun penulis dapat ilham daripada naskah Jawa juga. Bukan di Jawa ada satu myth. The Raja of Mataram married the princess from the Southern Ocean. Jadi every time the Raja would go to the sea, bersamadi, dia tak masuk dalam lah, dia pernah jumpa dengan puteri itu. Dan di Indonesia, yang saya ingat waktu saya buat research di sana sampai tahun 70-an, di Jawa Barat ada satu hotel, memang satu kamar itu dikosongkan. Tujuannya putri Nyai Loro Ratu Kidul ini, putri di lautan selatan, akan datang. Dan bila sang karate adherents, ya, jago karate, pergi ke laut dekat Jawa Barat itu, ada yang tenggelam, tarik air. Dan orang kata mereka ditarik oleh putri Nyai Loro Ratu Kidul. Itu myth lah. But it is not true.
Gambar tu yang kita tengok dari kampus, it means something else that okay, example lah. But you know how people kata dinamakan anak-anak dia politis.
Zaman sekarang, ya zaman sekarang.
Ada cahaya. So contohnya katalah before 2000 years ago, 100 years ago, they check my name, gold. Because it's cahaya. You know, I mean, I'm just
Okay, I understand.
About how do you know what is the name, what is the nickname, how do you know these things, or
Okay.
how do you share? That's one question. The other one is, saya nak tahu antara, how do you know what is informed mythology ataupun adakah kita kenal dengan literary language, you know? Could be historical, but it's called the penggunaan punya language ataupun mengangkatkan supaya menjadi lebih kesesataan. How can you tell the difference? I'm sorry, it's very late, so I can't, you know, give you a very good answer.
Okay. Mengenai nama, kita tak boleh bandingkan zaman sekarang dengan zaman dulu. Zaman dulu, bila orang bagi nama, nama itu mesti ada makna. Dia must be meaning. Macam nama orang Cina. Mesti, wajib ada. Nama Arab pun, semua ada makna. Dia must be a meaning. Ya. Jadi, kalau macam kasturi, lekir, semua ada makna. Tadi saya katakan, bila kita buat itu, kita bukan saja menganalisis bahasa secara filologi itu. Bukan saja the words we analyze, but we have to compare. So when you read other texts, the Panji Tales for example, you find there are so many similarities. And you find that even Lukewa and Kertala, watak is, the character is the same. So, it is not really genuine. But it doesn't mean that the author was not an intelligent person. He was very intelligent. His imagination is very, very, very far and wide. Now, as for history, saya dah katakan, the veracity of history is proven by the evidence. Kalau tidak ada evidence, macam every now and then you read the papers, hang tuah wujud, what is evidence? Show me the evidence. I will retract what I say. I will withdraw. There's no evidence. Hang tuah wujud. Saya sudah analyze no? The word tuah didn't exist. Saya check naskah-naskah lama, tetapi dalam naskah reprinted or rewritten in the 19th century memang ada perkataan tuah. Memang ada. So bukan semua. Bila saya kata naskah, dia kena tarik itu 15th, 16th century or early 17th century. Tak ada. You read yourself sejarah Melayu bukan tuah. Find the tuah. Except for the name Tauha, orang kata tuah, itu assumption. Stop or tuha. Tuha. And the meaning is very clear. Tuha means skillful leader. Did I answer your question? Huh? Literature. In literature, you see that the author has a freedom to invent and create. And he uses all kinds of language. You see, the Pengarang Sejarah Melayu is so subtle. When he took the title Laksamana Khoja, one scholar came to me, he's a Western scholar, dia kata, oh, Khoja wujud di neraka Allah. Yes, but it's a different Khoja. He's like Cheng Ho, Zinger. Khoja means somebody who has no sexual desire, who's impotent. So indirectly, the author of the Malay Annals is saying, this guy Khoja is not the same as Laksamana Mampuha. So you have to analyze, you have to be imaginative also. Sebab itu bahasa penting. And that's why it's important to have dictionaries, people who study, because you see in Malay history, there's always lack of evidence. You have to use archaeological evidence if possible. There's one archaeologist, my research on Hang Tuah started when I listened to a talk by an archaeologist, my friend, my close friend at UKM, who said that if Hang Tuah didn't exist, how come there's his grave? But he quoted the Sejarah Melayu, which says that when Hang Tuah died, Sultan Mahmud buried him in Tanjung Maling. I always call it Tanjung Maling. Now that source of the Sejarah Melayu, actually, you must understand what is the Sejarah Melayu. Sejarah Melayu is a fictional writing piece of work. Not everything is history. I have discussed that in my book. Please read that part on the Malay Annals. You can't depend on the Sejarah Melayu to learn Malay history. But you can understand, you can learn Malay values through Malay Annals. How the Malays behave, how the Malays thought, yes, but not Malay history.
Ya, salam sejahtera Prof. Saya belajar dari UPM.
UPM?
Ya. Dan saya berlindung sebenarnya sebab dua orang bercakap pada proses yang sama.
Saya komen pasal mereka.
Dan
untuk beberapa bulan yang lalu, dan memang dia buat sidang media, kata dia dah kaji dokumen dari kerajaan itu. Dia kata memang baru wujud sebab dia ada dokumen yang kata Mampuha itu, lepas tu dia cerita pasal keris tu. Lepas tu sama ada dan pasal benda itu benar atau siapa sekali kan.
I explain it. You see, in history, as I said, the methodology of history needs evidence. Now, I have read the review documents long before they read. Nowhere in the documents is mentioned the name of Hang Tuah. Nowhere. Not even Tuha. Not even Tok. What is mentioned there? The letter came from Laksamana. Two letters. Laksamana. Now, how do you know this? Hang Tuah? The two UPM scholars claim that Laksamana, since that is Laksamana, existed in the letters 2 Ryukyu, so he must be Hang Tuah. How do you claim that? How do you argue? How do you provide evidence? There's no evidence. About the Christ, one of them went to Okinawa. It used to be one of the islands of Ryukyu. And he said, there was a priest, Sumilano, very beautiful priest. This must be Krishnapur. Who told her that? What evidence? Is it written there, Krishnapur? No, you can assume. If I have a sword, which is a replica of Robin Hood's sword, or King Arthur's sword, you mean to say that that is a real sword? I could have brought it from England. Likewise, the Ryukyuan people brought it from Malacca. Somebody gave it, but it's not. What's this? You cannot prove. You cannot assume. It's like hadith. It's like you in Malay, in Imam Muslim, we have to check whether the hadith is genuine or not. You check the Quran. That is the real source. If it goes against the thesis of the Quran, it's not hadith. It's false hadith. I've checked. This, I mentioned this in my people say that Malay rulers are called representatives of God on earth, or representative of God in the universe. Zilullah fil ard, Zilullah fil an. But somebody who did a PhD on this discovered that it's a false hadith. Because even the Caliph, the great Caliph, one of them manipulated the hadith. Take power, not judge. So you cannot just believe if somebody says this, you must believe. No. History doesn't work that way. Historians cannot accept that. You must always question your source. So you must question the source of your lecturers. What is your source? Where does it show? Where does it write?
Prof dia sebut pasal the parallel dari kisah Panji pada hikayat Hang Tuah. Bagi yang tahu, hikayat Tuah ni ada dua bahagian. Satu dari awal pada pertarungan dua pahlawan tu. Kemudian yang tadi saja adalah Odyssey. Hang Tuah berlayar.
Dia pergi mana-mana, China.
Ini in a way is satu bentuk Melayunya Odyssey.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Adakah ini juga plagiarism?
Yes.
Ambil dari kesan lain ataupun ada unsur original? Ambil contoh Hang Tuah pergi ke Istanbul contoh.
Yes.
Adakah ini benar?
No.
No.
Hang Tuah never did go to Istanbul. Dia dikatakan Rome. That story was taken from Hikayat Aceh. Yang ada hubungan antara raja-raja Pulau Melayu ni, yang ada hubungan dengan Istanbul cuma Aceh, not Melaka or Kedah Aceh. Yeah? Now, for example, one of your lecturers say, Hang Tuah dengan kapal mendam berahi. Nah, mendam dalam bahasa Melayu artinya apa? Pendam kan? Pendam. Actually, it's not mendam berahi. If you know what Javan, it's called mendem berahi. What is the meaning of mendem? Mendem means gila cinta, gila asmara. Kan jauh beza. So the Sultan asked, ini dari yang tua, dongeng lah, yang tua. Asked Bendahara to build a ship, and the Bendahara named it mendem berahi. Because Sultan sudah gila cinta, jatuh cinta dengan Puteri Jawa, Raja Galuh Chandra Kirana. So buat kapal yang juga namanya mendem berahi. Tapi bila jauh ni, Mendun Dalbin orang sebut mendam. Nah, mendam in Malay means pendam, to suppress.
Ada tak dia ambil source cerita dari
Semua dia ambil. Hang Tuah pergi ke Mekah, dia ambil source lain. Hang Tuah pergi Madinah, Hang Tuah jumpa Governor Madinah, semua tu.
source luar Asia Tenggara ada?
Source luar negara tidak.
Luar
Sudah diterjemah dalam bahasa Melayu. Hikayat Iskandar Zulkarnain. Hikayat Sri Rama.
Contoh kisah Hang Tuah dengan kuda tezi. Kuda tezi.
Kuda tezi.
Saya dah nampak painting dari sejarah Cina, impression painting. Kisah dia similar, lebih kurang. Kuda yang tinggi.
Anda tahu mana kuda tezi? Kuda tezi, kuda Arab.
Yes.
Kuda Arab itu terkenal, bagus. Kuda Arab itu memang ada dalam hikayat Tuah disebut, tapi bukan Hang Tuah dapat kuda Arab. So the whole thing is legend, the whole thing is myth. Even nama Raja Melaka pun tak betul. Sang Manyaka. Kadang Melaka waktu itu Sultan Mansur Sang Manyaka. From the very beginning, A to Z, boom. Jangan ada betul. Sebab nama sejarah. Hikayat apa hikayat ini? But it's a great novel. It's an epic. Sama macam cerita Hercules, Odyssey. It's a great epic. Jadi for somebody in the 17th or 16th century to be able to do that, as a great thinker, creative person. Walaupun dia ambil, dia cedok daripada banyak hikayat, it's not easy, to recompose. That's what he did.
Prof, one last question. When I was small, I had to learn about Hang Tuah and his 4 merry friends in Tawarin, in history lesson.
I grew up and Kuke Kim said a few years back that there is no evidence that Hang Tuah ever existed, and you must separate fact from fiction. And I remember he caused quite, when he said that, and everybody reported on that. Recently, when Dr. Rohaida launched her book, Surat dari Okinawa, she actually said that it was Professor Kuke Kim who recommended that she find evidence of Hang Tuah's existence from, among other places, Turkey and India. So, which suggests that Professor Koo feels that there may be the possibility of future evidence coming forward. What's your comment on that, please, sir?
Yeah. Well, let us dream on. Kalau dia kata Laksamana, that's a different thing. There's a possibility, but even then there's no evidence. Macam dikatakan Hang Tuah hidup boleh ada Da Vinci. Oh my God. What a fantasy. You think Leonardo da Vinci? No. What happened? People forget. They should emphasize on Laksamana. Kalau ada orang kata saya anak cucu Hang Tuah, jangan. Kalau nak claim pun anak cucu Laksamana. It's more logical, isn't it? But you have to prove lah. Get the DNA, prove that you are Laksamana's descendant. Just like orang kata saya ni keturunan Nabi. Sama dia orang kata saya keturunan Hang Tuah. Saya keturunan Nabi. Can you prove that you are the prophet's descendant?
Sorry. What about the keturunan Hang Tuah from Duyung, Melaka?
Duyung Melaka, yes. Duyung Melaka, when I gave when Ni Hasan gave a talk at UKM, they came, pakai daftar, pakai keris. This is show lah, which is good in Malay culture also. Saya dah ceramah di Duyung tentang I say the tarikh pun bukan Melaka itu salah. Nobody care. Oh tak peduli pun. In fact, ada orang janji bayar, ada telefon, ada. Saya pun tak peduli lagi. Tapi banyak pembohongan dalam sejarah. That's why I'm very angry. I'm not saying I'm a good historian, no. For heaven's sake, no. But I'm a history student. I always studies. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can accept it. And I'm very critical about documents. When you look at the document, first you must say, I don't believe this. Then you start. Then that is believable.
Thank you very much.